Hello, this is Dr. Edward DeVries, and you're watching video number 4 in the series of Southern Baptists for Southern Heritage. This video is dedicated to one of the great Southern Baptists, Lottie Moon. Of course, those of you who are Southern Baptists know that every year at Christmas time we take up a missionary offering called the Lottie Moon Christmas Offering. This Christmas offering is specifically important to Southern Baptists because 55% of all of the money that is raised by Southern Baptists for foreign missions every year comes from this one offering, the Lottie Moon Christmas Offering for foreign missions. But the story of Lottie Moon and her sister Jenny Bethel Moon is really a fascinating one because these two sisters spied for the Confederacy. Not only did they spy for the Confederacy, but they got away with it. Lottie and her sister Jenny were both the daughters of a physician, and they were born in Virginia, but when they were teenagers, the family moved to Ohio. When Lottie was in Ohio, she was courted by a young man from nearby Indiana whose name was Ambrose Burnside. Of course, many of you will recognize that name because Ambrose Burnside would later become General Ambrose Burnside, one of the high-ranking generals in the Union Army. Burnside and Lottie Moon were engaged to be married, but Lottie played runaway bride and she left Ambrose Burnside at the altar on their wedding day. Then Lottie and Jenny would both have numerous beaux, and eventually Lottie would marry a gentleman named Jim Clark, who would go on to become a very prominent judge. The Clark household was a very pro-Southern household, and Lottie, of course, and her sister Jenny were very pro-Southern as well. Judge Clark, her husband, was very active in a group called the Knights of the Golden Circle. This was a Confederate underground organization of sorts, and so it was not at all unusual for couriers to visit the Clarks carrying secret messages. On one such occasion, a caller arrived with dispatches that had been carried to Confederate General Edwin Kirby Smith in Kentucky. Lottie, she volunteered to carry the message and thus began her career as a spy. After she delivered the message to General Kirby Smith, she returns to Ohio by train. She uses her talent as an actress to basically bluff her way back into Ohio with the help of a Union general. Because she's so successful in this spy effort, the Confederates begin to use her services and ask her to carry more documents and to become a courier for them. In fact, she becomes so successful carrying top secret messages back and forth across the border between the Union and the Confederacy that she gets the attention of Canadian Confederate sympathizers who invite her to Toronto. When she's in Toronto, they give her fake passports and forged documents that would make her appear to be a British citizen. And so that would make it even easier for her to travel back and forth between the North and the South. And on one particular trip, she went from Virginia to Ohio, and she went through Washington, D.C., and talked with several high-ranking officials of the Union government. In fact, there's a story even that she rode in a carriage with Abraham Lincoln. On one trip to Virginia, she spoke with Secretary Stanton and so forth. And so she was very active as a spy for the Confederacy. Eventually, Lottie would be captured by the Yankees, and when they caught her, she was in disguise. They had her dead to rights. They knew she was a spy. They captured her sister as well. And she was supposed to be executed. But she's taken to the Yankee headquarters, and by the grace of God, guess who the commanding general is at the Yankee headquarters? Yep, you're right. You guessed it. Ambrose Burnside. And so General Burnside, of course, recognizes her, and, they have a conversation. And even though he knows that she's a spy and she should be executed, even though she left him at the altar, General Burnside is merciful, and she's placed under house arrest. And her and her sister are allowed to come and go as they please, so long as they report to the Yankees, every day. They have to come to the Yankee headquarters and report. And so they do this for a while, then they eventually escape. After the war, Jenny would move to Memphis, then she would go on to Hollywood. She actually got work as an actress and appeared in a few different films, one of them being a 1920s Robin Hood film. Of course, Lottie would become a teacher. Judge Clark would die. She would become a widow. And for the last 40 years of Lottie's life, she would be a Southern Baptist missionary to China. God would use her to reach multitudes. And through her, God literally changed the world. In fact, recently I saw a college course. And in this course, of the 10 Christians who had the greatest impact on the history of the world, Lottie Moon actually made the top 10. She was number 9. Lottie Moon had a tremendous, tremendous reach, and God used her greatly. And she was a great Southern Baptist. And the reason, of course, we're doing all of this is because the Southern Baptist Convention is they've come out on this attack against all things Southern, trying to separate themselves from their own history and their own heritage. Of course, we just kind of want to remind people that the people who established the Southern Baptist Convention, the great leaders of the Southern Baptist Convention, that they were Confederates. And Lottie Moon, in particular, she was a spy for the Confederacy. Lottie Moon's mother, of course, was a nurse who had provided help and comfort to the wounded Confederate soldiers. And so we just wanted to put that out there. And even though the Southern Baptist Convention wants to downplay the fact that Lottie Moon was a Confederate, what I found interesting was recently they made a promotional film about Lottie Moon, and it was designed to inspire young people to want to become missionaries. And they called the film The Heart of a Rebel. Of course, in this film, they say absolutely nothing whatsoever about Lottie Moon having been a Confederate. But the reason that they chose the title Heart of a Rebel is because, of course, they knew that Lottie Moon was a Confederate and that had a tremendous bearing and impact upon who she became as a person and as a missionary. And I'm just going to say it, that I believe one of the reasons that God was able to use her so mightily as a missionary, the reason she was able to suffer the hardships that she suffered on that foreign field in China, is because God had used her experience as a Confederate spy, her experiences in the deprivation of war when she was in the South toward the end of the war, her experiences in captivity as a prisoner of that war, having been captured as a spy and so forth. I believe that those were the things that God used in her life to prepare her to be a great missionary. And of course, as Lottie Moon got older and went on in life, she never apologized for having been a Confederate. In fact, one of the reasons that she went to China was because she really did not want to live in a country that had been captured. In other words, she did not want to live in a reconstructed South, and she did not want to live in a Yankee-controlled country. And so if she could not live in a free Southern South, she was going to go and give her life in China. And so this was our tribute to Lottie Moon this week. This is number 4 in the series Southern Baptist for Southern Heritage. Before we cut this video off, though, I want to do one thing, and I want to show you just about a minute of clips from the movie The Heart of a Rebel, just so you can just see a few images of the great work that Lottie Moon did for the Lord there in China.
I pray that no missionary will ever be as lonely as I have been. Here I am, working alone in a city of many thousand inhabitants, with numberless villages clustered around or stretching away. How many can I reach? If the joy of the Lord be their strength, the blessedness of the work will more than compensate for its hardships.
If you'd like to receive a free copy of my book, The Truth About the Confederate Battle Flag, just send me an email at the address on the screen and I'd be happy to send you a copy. May the Lord bless.